everyone. Welcome. I'm Jessie with the Conversations program. Thank you guys so much. Oh, thank you. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. We have a little bit of a different format tonight. We're going to have a whole panel of working actors from various projects to share their experiences tonight. I just want to remind everyone to please turn off cell phones or any other noisy electronics before we start. And also, if you wouldn't mind dropping your evaluation in the black basket, it just helps us keep doing these events for free. So again, welcome tonight. And at this time, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our moderator, Michael Bofshever.
Good evening and welcome to the SAG Foundation. Just a little pitch on behalf of the SAG Foundation. I know money is always hard to come by as actors, but when you pay your dues, there's a little line on your form to say to make a contribution. And the foundation is such a wonderful, worthy cause that helps actors in need. And you may not be in need now, but one day you might be, and the foundation is there for you. So if you can make a contribution when and if the time is right. We're thrilled to have just a fabulous group of such talented actors to come and to speak to us about the profession, about acting, about who they are. And so I'm going to introduce them individually as to they come into their assigned seats. That was pre-organized by Jesse Bush, who does a great job for the foundation as well. So first, let's. I think everyone has credits or knows everyone their credits. So I'm just going to mention their names. So let's give cheers to all as they come out individually. And first, Nora Kirkpatrick. Hey, Nora, come sit here. Be careful. Marisa Ramirez. Marisa. Welcome. Chuti Tiu. Chuti, did I say you right? Hey! Boy, what a good-looking panel. Carolyn Hennesy. Carolyn. Welcome, Carolyn. And Oscar Torre. Oscar. Hey, buddy. Right there. And Valery Ortiz. Hey, Valery. And last but not least, Windell Middlebrooks. There you go. So everyone get comfortable. This won't hurt.
Says you.
From experience. What's really wonderful about these evenings is that you guys have accomplished so much in your careers already, and you have this vast experience and knowledge that many of the people here in this audience want to know about. And so as we get to talk and discuss, it becomes a way for you to share what you've learned and for them to eventually to ask some questions in a really enjoyable give and take. So I'm going to start out with my first question, and I will open up to anyone who wants to answer it. And that is, and if no one does, we'll just go to something else. And that is we've all been smitten or bitten by the acting bug. We all have taken on this path of becoming actors and being actors. So I'm curious for one of you to share, was there a moment when you remembered that, oh, I want to be an actor? Yes, go ahead.
I have to jump in because...
Yes, that's the whole idea.
Thank you. My recollection is that just growing up, my parents really instilled in me that artists starve, so you cannot be one. And I would do things on the side, like I minored in performance arts studies on the side while I majored in political science and economics, right? So, okay, hide it from the parents. But one night, I was with my college buddies, New Year's Day, and we were all kind of, tired.
Hungover.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. We were all a little hungover, yes, and having cold pizza, Domino's pizza the next day. And we, all of us girlfriends went around and were like, okay, if money were no object, what would you do with your life? And it was really sad because a lot of my classmates, they were like, oh, I'd really love to write a book, but that's not going to make me money, so I'm going to journalism school. I would pursue ballet, but another woman said I would pursue ballet, but instead I'm going to get my psychology degree, doctorate degree. And when it came to me, I was like, wait a second, everyone's selling out. Screw it, I'm not going to. So I was like, okay, I commit from this day forward, I am an actor first, and everything else comes second.
Somebody else who has yes, Wendell.
I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, and I went to a technical. I am God.
But I'm a giver.
And he also has a really big voice.
But I am Mike. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, and I went to a technical high school, so we had majors in high school. So going in, I was business law, and I remember my freshman year being in accounting, and I hated it. The woman didn't want me in the class, I didn't want to be in the class, so let's end this. And so I worked the spotlight my freshman year, and then we have UIL, which is like the competition where for one-act plays, and so I auditioned my sophomore year for Inherit the Wind. And I played Matthew Harrison Brady, and we did the first round of shows, and we advanced and got an all-star cast, but it was the moment when I was doing this last monologue about Jesus and the Bible and bread and people leave it alone, and you have the audience in the palm of your hand, and I felt it, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I want to do it. And so I felt it, I knew it, went home and told my parents I'm dropping business law and I'm going to become an actor. Now, thank God my parents are supportive, but they did go in their bedroom and say, oh, Lord, we got to support him for the rest of your life. They just didn't tell me until I was in college. But the great thing about them supporting me, they knew I was serious because I was at the theater these long hours and I was willing to work hard. And then I told my theater teacher, I want to do this. And so that's how we figured out, for me, it was the educational route. So she helped me get the audition together and look at schools and pick a college. And so I got a scholarship to undergrad. And then being in the middle of Kansas, you're not going to make it to LA. So I decided I needed to go to grad school. And I went on and got an MFA at UC Irvine and graduated in 2005. And then I have been working coming out the gate. So I knew my sophomore year, but I also knew I need a realistic way, because it's getting off the bus in LA and praying that God opened the door wasn't going to work for Wendell, because I like to eat. So I need a little more stability for me. And so because I felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, affecting people, because that's why I do what I do, the doors have just kind of opened one after another. And some don't look like they're doors leading you to this path, but here I went from Texas to Kansas, but because I went to the school in Kansas, it was in a coalition where I could come study abroad away in LA. And I interned in a casting office, went back, graduated, and then went to grad school. So sometimes the doors don't look like they're leading you to the path that you want to go, but it's just kind of a little detour to get you where you're going.
Great answer. Somebody else? Yes, Carolyn?
I was 4. My father was a...
20 years ago?
Oh, God, I love you. Oh, my God. Yes. My father was a production designer. He was actually an Academy Award-winning production designer, so I am the only actress that I know personally who has rehearsed her Academy Award acceptance speech holding an Oscar.
Tell us who your dad is.
My father was Dale Hennesy, and he designed Young Frankenstein and Fantastic Voyage and Logan's Run and Dirty Harry and incredible seminal movies. But I was 4 years old when I walked onto my first studio lot, which was 20th Century Fox, and it was the set of Fantastic Voyage. And I remember it like crystal, like I'm looking through glass. Everything was very dark except one particular section of this huge room. And something very important was happening over there because everyone else was being very quiet. And somebody would yell something, and then you would get very quiet, and then buzzers would sound. And my father took me over and walked me around this set, and then we watched Stephen Boyd and Raquel Welch and the whole thing. And I just really dated myself. But I was 4.
20 years ago.
20 years ago. And I knew in that instant, without actually truly being able to comprehend what I was seeing, at the age of 4, you can't. I just knew that it was like falling into warm bathwater for me. And that's where I wanted to be for the rest of my life. And then I got on stage when I was 12, third dancing girl from the left, in Aladdin. And you hear, yes, the Encino Elementary School production of Aladdin. But it didn't matter. Applause is applause. It just doesn't matter. And when it's coming at you and you realize, oh my gosh, because the darkened room of the, the soundstage is also the darkened room of the theater. And you feel it coming at you and you just think, well, this is my DNA. This is part of who I am. I don't know if there's any money in this. I don't care if there's any money in this. I actually have an aunt who is also an actress. Her name is Barbara Rush. And yeah.
Such a family.
Such a family. But I learned more. What's very interesting is that I learned more about what I wanted to do and why I wanted to do it from being that studio brat and watching the nuts and bolts and realizing not only do I have to be in this world, but I have to act. I don't know if it's going to make me any money. So far it hasn't. We're hoping. But, I've managed to, you keep plugging along. Because I think if any of us were really in this for the money, we would have gone home a long time ago. So I had those 2 moments. Really, the one when I was 4 was just kind of the life changer at 4. And I act because I have to act. I get up in the morning and I have to do it. It's as simple as that. So.
Just for the panel to, did you want to go, Oscar? No. Okay, just for the panel to know, this is like school, so that if you don't answer, I have to call on you, so please raise your hand. I don't want to force you, since you volunteered to be up here. So either pick up on what Carolyn was just talking about the need to act from a very early age, and or who was the first influence on you to want to be an actor? Was it a teacher, a parent, an actor? What I really love about this panel tonight is that the diversity is absolutely fabulous. And it's a real reflection, I think, of who we are and who we have all become. So we'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. But yes, start. Yes.
Yeah, Martin Short for me.
Because?
Because I saw The Three Amigos. And I saw, there was this monologue where he talks about Dorothy Gish or something. It's been so long since I've seen it. But I watched it, and I remember the entire night, and I think for the next week, I was just doing the Dorothy Gish monologue. And
do you remember any of it?
At the end of it, he says something like, "And you, somebody, have got it," or something about I don't know. It's something ridiculous about show business. But I grew up in Iowa in a really small town, and for some reason that movie was like it for me. It was, and then I moved on to Spinal Tap and all those movies. And today, oddly enough, I ran into the original Spinal Tap eggs. I don't know if that means anything to anyone else, but I was in Van Nuys, and there they were, and it was a big day for me. So.
You mean the Stonehenge eggs?
No. When they all come out of these eggs on stage, like at one of the scenes, and then the drummer blows up.
You mean like in the little Stonehenge thing and the little dwarves
no,
dancing around?
No, it's before the Stonehenge
okay.
scene.
No,
that comes down from the ceiling. They have these literal.
Let's not argue.
No.
One of my favorite movies. I got to figure out what the.
Nora, how did you run into these eggs?
Okay. Well, I play accordion in this band, and we had to drop off all our gear at this large studio.
Tell everyone your band.
It's a band called Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. It's a hippie band.
Cool.
Anyway, so we had to drop our gear off there, when we got back from tour yesterday, and I went to pick it up again, and I walked by these eggs, and I asked the guy what they were, and he's like, "Those are the Spinal Tap eggs." And I took a series of pictures. He must have thought I was crazy, but I was really excited about it.
Oscar, do you want to pick up on some of this?
Yeah, I think I'll combine both questions. For me, it was interesting. I didn't want to be an actor.
Yes.
It's not something that I was pursuing. I was in college, and my girlfriend at the time signed me up for an acting class as a joke, because I was very shy, so she thought it'd be a cool joke. And I was flunking the class. I thought people there were clowns.
Right.
Honestly, I was seeing them do all these exercises and imagine a ball and pass the ball, and I'm like, I wouldn't pass the ball. I'm like, and I was failing the class, and towards the end of the semester, the teacher tells me, you need to go up on stage and do something, because I'm going to flunk you.
Now, what school, how old were you?
This is Miami-Dade Community College.
Great.
I'm from Miami.
Right. Miami,
Mom?
Oscar, you and I are the only married guys up here, so,
Really?
So,
I think. So you're passing the ball, and they told you had to get up there.
So she tells me, you need to do an exercise, do something. And it was towards the end of the semester, and it was a private moment.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh, God, private moment. What and the only thing I could think of was when my grandmother died. I remember being in the hospital, and I was doing sense memory without knowing that I was doing sense memory.
Right.
I had no idea what I was doing. I was just, okay, I'll reenact the moment. And I remember being in the hospital and waiting to go in because she was about to pass away to say goodbye.
Oh.
I'm like, okay. So it was kind of staged, kind of like this, actually. And I was on the side, and then I remember being in the hospital, in the hallway, and I was sitting on the floor, and I remember shaking, and I remember the wall was cold, and I remember being called, you can go in, and I remember these double doors and walking in. So I stood up. I was trying to ignore the audience. I didn't want to think there was an audience there because I was very shy. I walk in, and I had this planned, what I was about to say to my grandmother and all that. And the moment I took a step forward, my grandmother was there.
Oh.
There was nobody, it was me and her in the hospital at that moment. And I just started shaking and said goodbye to her on stage. I finished the scene, and I'm like, and then I saw everybody looking at me, and I just walked out and left the class. I honestly felt like I was naked on stage.
Sure.
But that was the moment I got hooked. That's the moment, the high that I felt was so magical that I'm like, I need to do this. And my major at the time was psychology. So it ended up helping, my major helping with what we do. But it changed, that moment changed my life. And then later on, once I started getting into acting, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, those two actors that I wanted to be like them. They didn't feel like they were acting. Because
Right.
I felt like I was a horrible actor. So in my head, I couldn't act. Because if I act, I suck. So.
Good. Ladies, do you want to
Yeah.
jump in?
That's hard to go after that. I'm like all emotional right now because that moment. Oh my gosh. I wanted to be a dancer when I was a kid. I grew up in Orlando, Florida. Any of Orlando? Just Miami.
Full sail?
I mean, I lived in Miami for a little bit. I know. I wanted to be a ballerina when I was a kid. I grew up in Puerto Rico. So one thing that's really funny is that being in LA and around a lot of actors, and even my husband, like, he'll be like, yeah, when I was growing up, I used to watch this movie over. And like, my first language was Spanish, so like all these classics, like, I did not know. It's like, if it wasn't El Pequeño Tren, I didn't know what they were talking about. And I'm like, yeah, no, never saw it at that age. My brother was my biggest influence because he loved to play with the home video camera, and of course we did all these little stop motion animation things with clay. He learned how to edit with 2 VCRs, so like I would be his little actor, and I would do hosting, and he'd be doing like stunt things, and we'd play in the backyard in the woods, and like we have all these awesome videos because he's brilliant. So that really got me into it, and I mean I was still taking ballet and jazz and stuff, and I was in the Nutcracker like 12th dancer in the back. But it was always my passion was dancing. And then my brother got into a theater magnet in Orlando called Dr. Phillips High School Theater. And I auditioned, and, because he went, and the plays were so amazing. And I really just followed in his footsteps and then fell in love with theater, and then learned what a headshot was in high school and what an agent was in like 12th grade, which I feel like is so late compared to like the babies that start out here. But hey, it worked out.
It's not where you start, but where you
True.
finish is. So Would you want to jump in, Marisa?
Sure, I'll take both of the questions
Yes,
combined
please.
too. I grew up not wanting to be an actor as well. I started modeling when I was 12. My mother sort of got me into it, and I worked so much that I wasn't in school a lot, so I didn't really have the opportunity to go to college because I needed to work to pay to support myself and, blah, blah, blah. But it was a great job. I started traveling, and I remember I was in Milan. I was living there for a summer, and I met all these other models, and I was 18, 19, and some of them were like 35, and they had been doing this traveling circuit, going to all these different countries for all these years, and they didn't have a savings, they didn't have a home, they didn't have a family, they didn't have, a life. They were just wandering, and that made me realize I didn't want to do that anymore. And over the years of modeling, I was very shy as well. Must be a Latin thing, I don't know. But
We're like the last three to answer. Yeah, it is.
yeah, exactly, we're shy.
I'm hiding behind it.
Stop hiding. I think I just realized I developed this personality and I wanted to do something else with it. And when I was in Milan, I was like, that's it. I'm going to go home and I'm going to quit this. I just don't want to do it anymore. Of course, I had to still pay my bills, so I had to continue until I got something else. But I remember my first job was hosting MTV. And I had the best time because I could just be myself. And then it sort of helped me transition into getting more jobs and feeling more comfortable with auditions and just finding this passion and wanting it so much more. And my grandmother actually was the one, she grew up here, I did too, East LA, and she was a dancer. She performed at all these little clubs in East LA, but she also tried to model. And she would always tell me these stories about her taking the streetcar, there were streetcars here, to auditions, and we would, share stories, and she would always tell me, you don't have to worry about a thing, you're gonna be fine, I believe in you, you have this just quality about you, this charisma, this personality, and you know how grandmas are. Like, yes, grandma, thank you, but, her kind words all the time and her love and support just sort of helped me want it more and continue with it and to thrive from it and just love it and just created this deeper passion for it that I have now, and I guess it's working.
Absolutely. What I love about all the answers and having such a great panel up here is that everyone comes to acting with different backgrounds and that anyone can succeed no matter where you started, from whether you were in the industry or you lived in the middle of the country or you didn't even want to walk out of your class. And I think that we all have to try to gain inspiration when we hit these dark periods as actors to know that I view the career as an actor as a marathon and not a sprint. And so we all start at different times and different places, and it's where we're going to finish as we go about it. Some of the things that I pick up on that you guys have all talked about is about the need to act, the desire to act, which is also very personal to you as an artist, and that's what makes each of us special individually. Talk about training. Talk about how you took this need and then you created a process. I mean, it's pretty remarkable, Oscar, for someone who didn't want to act, and the first thing they tell you to do is to do a private moment, and you're doing sensory work. I didn't know that someone who had never done anything like that would even know what those terms are. So whether it's you or someone else, talk about your training. Talk about the process that you have as an artist to help solve material. Carolyn?
Okay. I started training for this when I was about 10, 11 years old. My family knew better. My father had seen so much in the industry, and he'd seen so much attitude and so many divas and so much nastiness that he instilled in me from a very early age. You train yourself. You be as well educated as you possibly can. You lose your attitude. You respect the crew more than your life, because they work harder in a day than you will in a year. And be a really decent person. So I started going, I went out to the teenage drama workshop at California State University, Northridge. Every summer I was in, every play production in elementary school, junior high school. I won a scholarship to the State University. And before that, I had gone up to American Conservatory Theater. Halfway through this university process, I went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London, where I was told they were talking about my audition. Once I had actually been accepted into the program, I heard two teachers. It was like an intensive master class, and they said, "Oh, do you remember her audition?" They went, "Yes, I cringed."
Wow.
And I was like, I'm still going to be an actor. Fuck you, I don't care. And I got better. What they're used to and what I was giving them. Well, they saw something because they took me, but, it was just, yes, I cringed. I went, oh, really? Thanks so much. But just kept, and I came back and took some classes with a woman named Joan Darling. I don't know if that name means anything to anybody, yes, and just kept always being in it. When I was at university, however, I had what is a seminal moment. And that someone said something to me which altered the course of my life. And it was a teacher. Because I was going to be the next Meryl Streep. She wasn't dead, or was she going anywhere? But I was going to be the next one. And I was coming up fast, Meryl. Watch out. Wrong. In a particular class, this teacher looked at me and she said to the entire class, she said, now Carolyn, for example, is a perfect example of the grotesque.
Wow.
And I lost control of my bladder. And then I cried. And then I went home and I looked up grotesque and I went, well, obviously I heard wrong. She couldn't have meant what I think she means. And it would, no, grotesque. And I was like, and I went back the next day and I said, what did you mean? Why would you say that to a student? Stop. And she said, no, you don't understand. What you are innately, what you have been denying all these years, what you have been not tapping into is the Phyllis Diller, Lucille Ball, Jack Benny, Milton Berle, the people who will go balls to the wall, who are not afraid to be ugly for funny, and who are just who just drive it home with honesty and intensity, but they are not Myrna Loy, Carol Lombard, who are very pretty when they're funny. They are the clowns. But they are grotesque in their mannerisms. If you watch an episode of I Love Lucy, which I can quote all of them to you, you will see she's grotesque in that fabulous sense of the word. And so I'm just letting all of you know, you never know when the word will come and your head will kind of tick and you'll say, my life has changed. This has inspired me. And so I went on from there to study comedy. I went to the Groundlings. I was the best years of the Acme Comedy Theater, sketch comedy, the whole thing. And I realized when she said that why I had been watching I Love Lucy all my life and quoting it and watching the timing, and because training can happen from the corner that you least expect it. You can have books in front of you and you can have a teacher lecturing you. You can also watch Vivian Vance turn slowly to Lucille Ball and realize that you've just seen a master class. And you watch it again and you clock it and that's how you learn. You watch the last 5 minutes of Chaplin's City Lights, master class. You watch Katharine Hepburn in A Lion in Winter, master class. And you do it over and over again, whatever appeals to you, whatever sings to you. So I'm grotesque and I love it.
Someone else about training and how it's been applied to your work in the real world. Yeah, go ahead, Windell.
For me, I guess my process, one of the first monologues I ever did was Levy from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom by August Wilson. Now this was, you say yes, but I was in the 9th grade when I tried this. Because I was told to find a monologue. So I got a monologue book. And, yeah, I'm looking through it, and I found what I connect to. And it's a monologue about a group of white men raping my mama while she was frying chicken. That's literally what drew me to, okay. And I was like, I want to do this one. And it was something about connecting to that first, before any technical, before anything. I come in to do a run of it. And the emotion, the life, the whatever was just there. Then we work the timing and the rhythm and all the technical stuff. But that taught me, even then in the 9th grade when I first did that everything I connect to now, I connect to my scripts, whatever, emotionally first. So I read it and I see what's in Windell that connects to this that I'm pulling from. And that has been my process of, I believe that we don't like to admit it all the time, but everything that you ever need to bring it to life off the page is in you. It's like Prego soup. It's in there if you dig deep enough. That's really how I look at it. Sometimes.
Are you pitching for another commercial?
I don't even eat Prego soup, so no, but thank you. But I remember that little slogan, and that's literally how I look at myself as a person. A lot of times, the stuff I find, I don't like. Because you have to face yourself first before you can bring it to life in this character. But that is my process on everything. And then I grew up in a family where I don't care how dramatic or how hard life was, we laughed. You know, we could be at a funeral, and my entire family will bust out laughing. Everybody in church think we are crazy. You know, because I don't know if the soloist gets up and can't sing, and it just takes one giggle from my uncle, and it's done, you know. So I learned humor in everything, and the roughest times is just funny, and that has just kind of been my rhythm of my life. You laugh at everything. There's humor in everything. Yes. And the serious and whatever. And so I take all of that just growing up, I guess that richness that I didn't even know that that's what it was when I was growing up, and that's what I bring to life in the work that I do. So good. I take real life and try to come through honest every time. That's my goal.
Good. Someone else want to jump in on this before we move on to something else? Yes, go ahead, sir.
I trained, when I first started in Miami, as you can imagine, it was method. What the teacher, Stanislavski, what the teacher was teaching. And it was really difficult for me at the time. Especially if you can imagine, I didn't want to do the ball exercise and all that.
Sure.
So it was really difficult for me, but things started clicking after a while, and then still to this day, I'll go back and I'll read and I'll go, oh, that's what that meant. So I think you never stop learning. And I studied with different teachers, and then I studied with somebody who was teaching Meisner, and I got some of that, and I got some of the method, and then I read different books, and different teachers said things in a different way that spoke to me. I read a book that made sense to me, which was an Eric Morris. Never studied with him, never met the guy, but his book really helped me. And then I made it my own. I made it my own, and once you're on the set, you throw everything away, and then you have an actor in front of you, and you can't ignore that actor. But a lot of times you see actors working on the spot, and they're not there, they're not connecting to you. And I think the bottom line is taking in the other person that's standing in front of you, where you're at, the situation, and feeding off it, and being alive at the moment, and believing in yourself, even if you haven't figured it out. Even if you're horrible at the moment. I was a horrible actor for a long time. And I knew the teacher that was teaching me, she didn't have a lot of faith in me.
You showed her, huh?
Well, I was in a huge class, and kind of like this. So it was hard to get on stage. I didn't want to get on stage. I was shy, I was hiding in the back. And there were a lot of talented actors. So that was intimidating for me. So I would go home and think about the things that I was seeing on stage. And I learned as much from watching than from doing.
Exactly.
And from that class, I'm probably the only person who's still acting and who's made a career out of it. Everybody else has quit. from that class. So I think determination and having faith in yourself and knowing that what attracted you to this in the first place, even if you're not doing well, what's the reason why you're doing it? If it's to be famous and to make a lot of money and to do something else, because you have no control over that.
Sure.
If it's about being in the moment, telling a story, and to me, it's exploring who this character is. That's what attracts me, and that's pretty much the way I work.
I think what's yes, one second. I think what's really important as we're sharing things back and forth is that there's no one way to go about it. Did you want to pick up on that?
Do you mind if I jump
No,
in?
yes, go ahead.
Okay, I have to. There is no one way. I have to say that this gentleman back here and I met at an acting class. His first acting class with this particular teacher. And I remember, we're now married. But when his first acting class, he was paired with
In LA,
me.
my first acting class in LA.
Sorry, in LA, I'm sorry. First acting class with Friends and Artists Theater. He will recall saying that he thought I was a complete nut. He said,
And
yeah,
I was
she's-
right.
Yeah, he is kind of right. But the process that we were working, speaking out on sound, we were doing a scene, and I started speaking out on sound. What do you feel like doing, physically, verbally, etc. And I started, flying around the room and flapping my wings. And so he thought it was crazy. But he soon learned this particular technique. And we all have different techniques. Being married now, whenever he has a job, I have a job, often we'll share certain things about our process, but there are times where we will vehemently disagree. I'll even get angry. I'll be like, no, that is not how I'm going to approach the scene. That is not how I do it. It's fine for you, but don't tell me what to do. That goes for chores too. But anyway, but I wanted to jump on what you said,
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
It's so important because I think our process is very personal. And even when you're on set, you feel how people come to their particular, I like to call it creation. I use imagination a lot. I use a lot of Stanislavski's sense memory, all of that, Meisner, you name it. But something that I have come to that I like a lot is creation work, which helped me get out of my left brain, because I have a tendency to be rather intellectual and intellectualize things, and I was like, no, I gotta shake that off. I wanna go back to my instincts, my imagination, not, ooh, what do I think she would do, as opposed to what do I feel? Like what you said, that hook, what gets you? So, anyway, I had to share that little,
Good.
the conflict.
Good. Somebody else want to add on this?
I was going to say,
Yes, go ahead.
experience too is everything. You can take a lot of classes and study and read books, but your life is your experience, your friends, the people that you run into. That has been everything for me. And being on a set and just working, even with your friends. Like, I love working with my friends and, going over auditions and stuff. Because everybody's so different and everybody has a different life and a different story. So exactly with you two, how you read it one way, you have another way. It's because you're two different people, and that's so awesome. So that alone really intrigues me. And another thing is, because you were talking about creation, is keeping yourself busy with other things that aren't necessarily acting, like, having hobbies, falling in love with other things in life, people, just experiences, traveling, because that's just going to really enrich you. And when you have this scene and you read these words and you have these relationships, you're going to have all these other things to bring to it. So staying busy and falling in love with other things, to me, also makes a big difference, and giving you longevity too, so you're not so like, oh, gotta get this on his head because bills are due next week. Let me go hike after this, something like that. Just stay busy.
Actors can be incredibly boring. We can be. The actor who has not enriched himself, the actor who does not read the magazines, go to the shows, travel, taste the new food, listen to the new music, just complete and utterly open themselves up. The actor who is self-involved, I'm an actor, and let me tell you about my last role, and let me sit in an audition room and try and psych everybody else out. Blah, 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 blah. They are the most boring wretches and sad, tragic people on the planet. I'm going to caution every one of you,
They are
do
like
not
hemorrhoids.
do not be that person. Because I'll also tell you something else. The higher-ups that hire you don't want to spend 12 hours in a darkened big room with somebody who's boring. If you are able to talk to them about poker or truffles or the latest photo exhibit at the Getty or golf, whatever it is, you don't just, and I'm not saying go and find out what they're into and get into it. No, because that's just being stupid and sucky. Be your own person and be interesting. Because I'll tell you something, talent is great. Talent goes so far. If you are a fabulous person to work with, if you are interesting, well-educated, well-rounded, if you can quote, the latest rapper and Mozart, if you can, right? If you can do it all, they're going to want you back. Because guess what? You're also not talking about yourself as an actor. I'm so constipated as an actor. It's boring. It's silly. Be a universal individual. And I just want to say one other thing about training. As many people as there are in this room, that's how many different methods there are. The stamp of approval from Juilliard, that works for someone. But hopefully, whoever that person is grows every single day. So he's got a Mary Poppins bag of tricks, right? And this is his method. He can put the Juilliard training in there, that's fine. But now he's got this, and he learns off of every set, from every person that he talks to, from every restaurant that he goes to, whatever it is. And so you have a book, maybe, I don't know, however you envision it. You have a roster, you've got a bag of tricks, whatever it is, but it's your process. You need to own it. You need to never be intimidated by anybody else's process because it works for them. Or maybe it doesn't work. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe they just suck.
Marisa, did you want to seem like you were wanting to say something?
Well, I might be the only one that hasn't, so I feel like I should. No. My mother said to me almost every day, just be yourself, honey, just be yourself. Because I was so shy. And then I learned that in classes. I didn't take a whole lot of classes and go to, theaters and stuff. It was mostly like on-camera classes. But every teacher that I had classes with always taught me to draw from my life experiences within the scenes. And that was another side of being myself. And I remember I had one class with one instructor. I don't know if I should say her name, but she
What's her name?
her name is Sandy Marshall, but she was awesome. And I remember being up on the stage, and I cannot remember what the scene was, but it was with a guy, and it was, I think I was dying. I don't know what was going on. It was pretty intense, And in front of everybody, she called me out on things and said things that hurt me to my core. Not hurt me, but they just got inside me and brought out everything that I had been dealing with personally. That was some really deep stuff that, a lot of people don't even know about, and I'm not going to say now, but it was just to the point where it just awakened me. And at that moment, I was bawling and bawling and bawling, and I could not stop. I went out of the room, I went back in, and I nailed the scene because she taught me how to just draw from who I am and what I'm dealing with and how to apply that to who I'm supposed to be in these scenes. And that's pretty much what I've carried with me through different jobs and work and auditions and everything. It's how I would react to this if it was happening. As, in this scene, as if something was happening to me, how would I react to it? And that was my 2 cents, I guess.
And a worthwhile 2 cents.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to touch on something after this, next, and that is all actors are going to hit peaks and valleys in having a career. And we can all have a need to act and a desire to act and a talent, and we can all have all of this training, but that unless we have a sense of perseverance, We are going to run into obstacles that may or may not prevent us from moving forward. So do you have either a philosophy about persevering? All of you are working, I think, right now, and things are always grand when you're working. But I also know from experience that there will come a time, if you haven't had it already, where you don't think you'll ever get an acting job again. There's so many wonderful stories of very famous actors who have, from Henry Fonda to Jack Lemmon to others that I know of that have talked of, I'll never get an acting job. So what's your personal philosophy on perseverance? Or do you have a story where you persevered and ended up getting something, and as you were mentioning, Oscar, about how many people had quit from your acting class? Someone? Yes?
Well,
Yes. Go, 2 in a row.
Okay.
2 for 2.
at the same time.
I certainly believe in, I set myself up for disappointment in this business because that's pretty much what you run into a lot. And that way, I don't get attached. Say if I audition for something that's amazing and I want it because it would just be the step in the best direction possible. I go in the room and I walk out of there and I forget about it. It's like, it's gone. I'm not going to think about it anymore. I'm going to go on to the next one. And if it comes back around, it comes back around. But that's how I keep myself going, is just stop thinking about it and keep myself busy, like Valery said, with just normal life, routine, other things, hiking. I teach kickboxing to yell at people because it's amazing. Just try. I hit people. No, I hit bags. I hit heavy bags, and it's fun. And I get my aggression out. But that to me is just so important, is trying to live a very normal life and not to walk around and say, I'm an actor, I just auditioned for this. No, you don't want to talk about it because you don't know what's going to happen. Just leave it in there and hope for the best, but kind of expect the worst, and you never know what can happen.
Right, Nora?
This is such an interesting question, but there's been so many moments where I found myself so wound up in all of these things, or this job, or this part, whatever, and then I somewhere along the line, I realized that I can zoom out really far. And I can see, let me go too far and you can think I'm a hippie and that's fine. And then I realized that we are floating on a ball in the middle of space. And it does not matter. It does not matter if I get this role or not. What matters is if I keep doing what makes my head spin and what makes me curious and filling out the corners of my personality and figuring out who I am on this planet, who I am as a person, and how that relates to my work. But this role doesn't matter, and the next one doesn't. And the thing that I think alleviated me from getting feeling stagnated is by creating a community of people who I work with all the time. Be that on jobs that pay me money, be that on jobs that don't pay me money. I do a lot of stuff at the Upright Citizens Brigade, which is an improv and comedy theater in LA. And we have created I went to UCLA for theater, through all of these avenues, a group of people. We're making videos, we're putting them on YouTube, we're putting them on Funny or Die, we're doing sketch shows, we're doing plays, we're doing things all the time. Not a week goes by that I don't have an opportunity to either write and shoot and make something or be a part of something that one of my friends is doing. So we're always working, even if it's not some huge high-paying job and I have my own trailer and I'm feeling all special. We're always working. So to say I'm out of work is something I try not to think about. It's more like, oh, I'm free this week, great, I'm going to make something. I'm going to do something. Because you have these ideas and your head is spinning in this direction, or you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be an actor.
Oscar? Valerie, okay, go.
I think with every job, once I'm done, we're fired. No, I think that I'm never going to act again. Not only do I think that I'm never going to act again, with every job that I get hired, there's a moment that I'm like, how am I going to do this? I'm going to be horrible. I think with every single job I've ever done, there's always that moment. And then I'm just saying, I'm like, okay, I'll be okay. But yeah, with every job, once I'm done, I'm like, will I ever act again? Back to being unemployed. Back to hustling. I hate auditioning, by the way. Hope there's no casting directors in there. And I've learned, to let it go. And there's jobs that I've gone in. There's been auditions that I've gone in, and I've been great. Or at least I think I was great. And they told me that I was great, and I didn't get the job. And then there's auditions that I've been horrible. There's one in particular that I retired from acting right after the audition. By the time I got home, I was hired. Which is, and I've realized that I only have so much sense of what's happening or what they're seeing, what they're looking for first. And the other thing is to say what she was saying is, I think we're living in a great time right now with cameras that are cheap, digital cameras. There's no reason why you shouldn't be creating. There's no reason why you shouldn't have your own projects, because find something that you're passionate about. Because that always, for me, that always takes me back to, like, I do an audition, and of course I want it. But the moment I walk out, I start telling myself, well, if I don't get it, that's fine, because I have more time to work on my project. I'm going back to writing. Let me finish writing this. Let me make some phone calls. So it makes me proactive,
Right.
in my career, and not focusing on what I might or might not get. And that keeps me going, because then I'm being creative, and I don't feel like I depend on somebody else to act.
Right. Being proactive, without show of hands, everyone in this audience should be working on developing a project, being involved in something, so that their creative life is still alive and tangible for them until the next paying job comes across. Anybody else want to touch on this? Yes.
I guess I learned in college, I refused to live in the artist dorm. We kind of had an artist dorm, and then you had an athletic dorm. But the actors got on my last nerve. I'm serious. Quoting Shakespeare all night and Kierkegaard and Why We Here and all that stuff, no. I want to go to the basketball game, and after rehearsal, I want to go to the river, and I hope y'all went to the liquor store, and I want to be done. But what the lesson that taught me was how to leave it. So, and I was around people who did not do what I did. And I lived on I was the RA to all the basketball boys and the soccer boys in the basement of Kilburn Hall. And here I am. It was such a divide on campus between the artists and the athletes a lot of times, but every show that I was in, the whole dorm was there. We're selling out plays because they're coming because I lived in that one dorm. Well, I learned that lesson then, and it's the same lesson that I use now. Like, I have a handful of actor friends that I went to school with and stuff, and that I met out here that I hang around, but I live a very normal life. I laugh because I like to live over the hill. So when I come to Hollywood, it's like I'm coming to Hollywood and then I'm going home. And you need people around you who let you leave it so you can just live life. And then it is what she said earlier about bringing all of that and the normal things into your work. And having, I guess, a grounded group of people around you who, this is going to sound so crazy. I do the craziest things to escape, to get away. I found a Sonic in Pasadena. I found a Sonic in Pasadena, 30 minutes away. It is like taking a road trip.
It was going to Vegas, the only Sonic.
It's 30 minutes away in Pasadena.
I live there. I
And you
live in
need that
Pasadena.
Fast food, Carolyn?
Is that a
It's a
burger?
fast
Is
food.
Sonic Burger?
Yeah.
I think there's one in Glendale, too.
It's going that way. It's Duarte.
Oh, the things you learn at a foundation.
But anyway, these are the normal things that I love. And you need people around you who will call you crazy, but say, pick me up in 10 minutes, because we're road tripping to Marshalls and a Sonic, because it's a Marshalls next to us. And we put the baby in the car, have a little godson, and we put him in the car, and this is what we go do. Like, you get away from Hollywood, and don't get me wrong, the red carpet stuff is fun and events, and I'm glad to be working and all that, but that's not what it's about. I have more fun on set than I do doing all of those things. So living a normal life a lot of times, just getting away.
Let me ask, it was touched on, I want to, because I think it's really important for all of us to listen to, is what your philosophy is on auditioning. And it sometimes is specific, whether it's theater or film, television, half-hour, commercials. But you are successful working actors. You have been cast multiple times in stuff. And so what's your way about going about it? How much do you memorize or not memorize? How much you on the page, not on the page? Someone?
I'm off book. Like for me, I feel like I can't begin to throw down and play and stuff until I know it. Like I know it enough, and then once I have it in me, I'm open to how it can change and how they can throw lines, and if they want to see it a different way, I embody it so I can play in that. So when I go into that room, to me, auditioning is very different than actually working. For me, I have to look at it as it's an audition. You know, I have to put the man here and make sure I'm not off camera this way. So I set it up and live in that moment, in that scene, in the audition, and then I live in it differently when I get the job, or if I get the job in the room. So for me, it's getting off book is the first thing. I can't throw down to that.
Valerie?
Same
Why don't we,
thing.
everyone, let's just go around, get everyone to speak about this. Yes, go ahead.
That for me is key, and it took me a long time to realize that, because you heard like, no, you shouldn't be on the page, yeah, you should, you know, all these things. And then I was like, no, I need to know my words. And I mean, I'll still look down, but it just, for me, for that whole play effect, it made a world of a difference. And it's hard though, because that whole like, you know, the auditioning is so weird, and some rooms are like awkward and small, some are like really big, some have like one person. Oh, and then you have the casting, the casting director who's like not reading your lines. It's like another scene, and then you're just like, oh my God. It's crazy, but working with my friends has been just so helpful and so fun. And I go to a coach in the Valley, and kind of putting it on its feet for me is like a really big deal too, just so I could feel like I've already done it, because if not, it'll be a hot mess.
Oscar?
Nora,
you're next.
I trick myself with auditions. I try to be off book, but more importantly than being off book for me is knowing what the scene's about, knowing who I am, where it takes place, what I am talking about. So I try to focus more on that than being off book, because I don't trust my memory auditioning.
Right.
I never have a problem on set, but auditioning. So over the years, it's taken me time to like not put that pressure on me that I need to be off book, but I do need to know what the scene's about.
Right.
I've seen actors who are off book, but they don't know what the scene's about. They're saying all the words, but there's nothing behind it. So after I started doing that, I find myself that I get off book a lot easier. Then when I was putting that pressure on me, I need to know the words, I need to know the words. And then it was affecting, I was spending more time memorizing words than knowing what's really happening in this scene. So my process is that, and one of the things, it's an advantage that my wife is also an actor, so we kind of do a game that, and you can do this with any friend. It doesn't have to be an actor, which is like a questionnaire of just asking questions about who you are in the scene. Who's this person? What do you do for a living? Even though it might not be in the scene, what do you do for a living? What did you eat today? What did you do before you got to this moment in the scene? And answering all those questions and making me think, and sometimes I don't have an answer. And I go, okay, I need to think about that. It helps me, once I'm in the room with a casting director, I go in with the life as much as I can with a life. And once you book the job, I'm going to go a step further. Once you book the job, keep working, keep asking questions, keep exploring, keep asking questions. Because I've also seen actors who have been great at auditions, and then they show up to the set, and they don't get any better than that audition a month ago.
Good. Nora?
Yeah, I am 10,000 times better when I have it memorized. But I also will, and I would say I do that 99% of the time, but I will say, especially during pilot season and things like that, there are going to be times when you cannot have it memorized because there just isn't time. I've gotten auditions, 40, 20 minutes before I have to be there. You're not going to have it memorized. So I think there has to be a way to work in that way as well, and there is. But yeah, in my life, I like to have it memorized. It's more freeing.
So talk about, though, if you don't have time to memorize, how do you tackle that?
You know, there are people who have like techniques on that, but I think most of it's common knowledge. If you're going to be reading off a page, hopefully it's not huge monologues, but there's a way to do it and still interact with the person you're with, because that is the most important thing. It's not this, and maybe this is wrong, but I feel like if you're going to mess up a few words, it is okay. You know, it's much more important about, you know, the relationship and who you're with. And if you need to take a break and you need to look down and do your thing. Like, they're not going to discount you for taking that moment.
Yes. Marisa?
I love auditioning. It's like an obstacle course for me. If I can have a bunch of them in a day, change my clothes in the car, make it to all of them, get home, have a beer, I'm great. And I have to memorize. I did soaps for a lot of years, and you have to memorize so many scenes for every day, and they change it right before, and you still have to memorize it because sometimes they'll only give you a couple of takes, and you're done. You're moving on to the next one. So my thing is, I have to memorize so that I can walk into a room, be myself, have the words back here, and bring myself to those words and play with them, like Wendell said. Just, it gives you room to play. If you already know who you are, who the character is, where you're going, what you're doing, who you're talking to, and you can have fun with it. That's what I've found works for me, and I have a lot of fun. Is that weird?
No, it's not.
I like auditioning.
Judy?
What I want to bring to light is that Oscar and I have also been on the opposite side, auditioning people, because we just produced a feature film, Pretty Rosebud, which I wrote and he directed. And what was interesting, I mean, to actually really look at each, like, okay, who is it that we'd actually want to play and pay to play this part, right? The stakes are suddenly very different. And it was crazy because, you know, our hearts went out to each actor because, you know, we feel for them. And there would be some actors or actresses that we would so fall in love with. We're like, oh my God, she's phenomenal. She's not right for the role. Like, it could have been her essence. One woman in particular, we were literally looking for a fresh off the boat, you know, newly immigrated, a kind of plain and a little bit shy, but with a little bit of sexy underneath. That's what we were looking for. This woman came in bright, gregarious, funny, wonderful. She did the whole scenes, and we're like, God, we love her. We can't cast her. We can't. So knowing that, when I go into auditions, I know that I have these tools. Like, I can't pretend to be 5 feet or 6 feet. I'm in the middle, right? I'm Asian American. Can't get past that one, you know? So you work with what you got. And then I use my imagination and delve into it, and I look at it like this is an opportunity to tell this story. Mm-hmm. Every person has a story that deserves to be told, right? Now, I hope that I get paid, that I get blessed to be paid for doing that role at some point. But if I only get to audition it, I get to tell that story for 5 minutes. I'm just going to grab it and do it. So that's how I look at it. Like, it's an opportunity.
Yes, Carolyn?
For me, the audition, I'll take it in 2 parts. Walking in the room. I'm not there to make friends. I am not there to shake everyone's hand, because that's silly. And they don't like that. A lot of them, unless I'm not there to actually extend my hand unless they extend it to me, because you never know what's going on. I'm not there to try and figure out, I'm not there to make everybody like me, because you have no idea if there are 7 people or even 1 person sitting in that room, what their day has been like, what they're going through, who's getting divorced, who just got her period, who just asked a girl to marry him. Seriously, you'd have no idea. What they want to, what I am there to do is show them that I've done the work. I'm not there to get the job. I'm there to show them that I've done the work. The girl that you just saw, who was so gregarious and wonderful, she didn't get the job. You will remember her, remember her, remember her. Because if they're looking for something, odds are that you will not convince them to buy your yellow if they're really looking for blue. Sometimes you will. And those are the magic, that's when magic happens. But more often than not, you won't convince them. You're there to show them that you know how to do the work, you've worked on the scene, you know what's happening, You know what the relationships are, you know what's driving your character, period. And then you say thank you very much and you leave. So it's a question of understanding that that room is yours and you own it and you really have to know how to negotiate it. In terms of actually the actual words coming, the actual audition, I always hold the paper and I memorize. Because I'm older than anybody on this stage, with the exception maybe of one person, but I'll be 51 in June. That's right. Well, I think that deserves a big round of applause. Because you talk about dark nights of the soul, you know, yes, I've had them, and I've had them for years, and I still persevere. But I'm 51. And even though I still work on a soap opera, the writers want to hear their words. They don't necessarily want you to make up words. So what I do sometimes, and it's a wonderful trick, you mark down places as you're memorizing where you will look down. So they know that you've memorized most of it. Okay, you got it. You understand what's going on. But you're going to look down to make sure that you've got it right, and you're not so intractable that you cannot be redirected. Because you don't want to be so intractable. You don't want to let I mean, believe me, I've heard stories where people go in and they say, no, I can't do it this way, or I can't do it that way. Because they've memorized it to such an extent, and they have it in their head to such a way, and, obviously they're not going to get the job. But your job is to actually go in and show them that you've done the work, and show them that you are there to solve their casting problem. So I have the paper, I memorize, but there's going to come a day, and there's already come days where it's like, I just went up. I knew this 10 times today when I rehearsed it with my husband, but I just went up. Oh, look, I have it in my hand. I can now, I've saved myself. So that's what I suggest to do.
I have you by many a year.
God bless you. You look
Many a
good, though.
year.
You look very good.
A decade or more. So let me, since you're only 24 too, let me take some questions from the audience that people have written, so we can get some more, get some participation going. Vanessa Marlowe, hey Vanessa, wants to know, how did you get your first real break? Anybody want to tackle that?
For me, I was in Miami.
Miami.
Thank God for Miami.
Exactly. They won tonight.
I was in Miami, and there was a Spanish soap opera going on TV that was very popular at the time. And there was nothing else going on in Miami at the time. They didn't have Burn Notice or anything like that. And there was a soap opera. And my resume was I had one credit in my resume, which was a lie. But my agent had cast that. So he said, it's fine if you put that. Nobody's going to ever ask you about this. Make sure you don't get caught if you're going to. I don't recommend it. But so, and I had some horrible headshots that were taken. And I saw that, I was looking at the credits, and I saw the casting director of the soap and where it was shooting. So I went with that headshot and resume, and I walked into the studio, past the security guard, asked for the casting director like if I knew him, and he wasn't there, and I dropped off my headshot and resume, and I was called like a week later to come in and audition, which I was surprised that it had actually worked. I was in the audition room, and I thought I was over the top and dramatic, and I broke the guy's telephone in the scene. I really did break the phone, and then I got cast. So that was my first job, was my first audition, which, I think as an actor you hold on. Once you start not having success, you start holding on to little things, and like, okay, that was a sign that I'm supposed to be an actor, because or else why did I book this first job? And I probably would have said the same thing if I would have booked the first job. I would have said, it's a sign that they called me in.
Looking for any sign possible.
Any sign possible.
Exactly.
And I do that all the time. So that was my first opportunity, and it kind of influenced the way I went about the business side of it, because it was something that I created in a way by showing up, by
Right.
just showing up.
That's that great Woody Allen line about showing up in life.
It's,
Exactly.
yeah, it's after.
Lauren, there's a Lauren with a smiley face. Hi, Lauren with a smiley. Lauren wants to know from anyone on our panel, how did you go about getting your first agent and/or manager, and what is your advice for someone who doesn't have a referral to get in touch with agents and managers? Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
For me, grad school is what kind of jumped in for me, because I looked for a school that had a showcase at the end. So I came out of school with a commercial agent, a manager, and a theatrical agent. Now, from that experience, what I can tell you is you have to get in a position to be seen, doing work. You know what I mean? Like, for us, showcase season kind of happened, and so people come out and different agents, and this also, I had meetings like with Paramount and all of these head of casting meetings and stuff because of that. So I would recommend doing plays, doing the CBS showcases, the ABC showcases, that it's kind of people come to see those. So just, you have to be seen doing work that you're proud of, because that's what, you can go in and tell someone you're good, they can look at your resume, but if you can get someone out to see you, I think that is at least one way, not the only way, but one way.
Somebody else on that? I want to add to what was just said, that I know when I first came to California, I was doing an equity waiver play at the Burbank Theater. It was in the middle of a ballpark in the middle of nowhere. And there was another actor who was in the play. I had 2 scenes in this play. And his wife was a manager, and she represented, at that time, Mariette Hartley, who's had a really fantastic career. And she came backstage after the play was over, introduced herself, and then took it upon herself to go to her agents, at that time was Triad, and say, I saw this wonderful young actor there. And the point being is that, as what Windell is saying, is you need to be working. You need to be finding work, because you never know who's going to show up in the theater. You never know who's going to be a castmate. You never know who's going to be in the audience, who's going to see your work when you least expect it and make a difference in your life. And then in addition, in addition to what has also been talked about, as you guys were, is that you need to be creating your own work and making your work to get out there for others to see, because you never know who's going to see it. And with the advent of media and all of the ways, people all over this country put something up, and out of nowhere, they are being discovered. And so proactive is a way to find an agent and/or manager. It is a false impression by submitting pictures and resumes. Do you really make a difference? Yes.
I just want to dovetail on something that Oscar said when we were talking about, because it's kind of related. And it's about getting a break. And I'm not going to talk about my first job, but I'm going to talk about the break that happened. Because we've all have jobs, you go from job to job, and then suddenly the clouds open up, and someone has given you an actual break. And it was Mark Teschner at General Hospital, who had known my work for years. Drips and drabs, guest star here, co-star here, leading a film over here, and he called me and he said, I have 2 days of work for you on General Hospital. I said, fine, no problem. And that was 7 years ago. Because I took those 2 days and I chained myself to the studio door and I said, I will not leave. You will absolutely continue to write for me. But it had been, the body of work proceeded. So you want to have stuff that you've actually really done on your resume, because and if no one's putting you on film, put yourself on film. Because I got cast for this role off of tape. He saw my reel. He showed it to the producers. I was working the next day, and so that had been my body of work. So and you never know who's going to see what, where, and how. And that was only 7 years ago. My break, I'm going to be 50, again, 51 in June, my break came 7 years ago. Do not give up.
Yes.
Do not give up. And I've been working like a freaking demon ever since then. But I am the poster child, literally, for persistence. The only way you will ever fail in this business, the true way to fail, the guaranteed way to fail, is if you walk away. And it's all up to you. If you walk away for the right reasons, you don't have the fire in the belly anymore. Okay, all right, no one will fault you. But if you walk away saying, oh, and you look back 10 years later and you say, I didn't give it my best shot, don't do that. Don't be one of them. Do not be one of them. So it will happen. It can happen.
Could I add to
Yes,
No.
you may.
the break
No, you
question?
can't.
I wanted to add about, like she said, it's not your first job a lot of times, it's not the break. For me, the break was a commercial. I do a High Life campaign, the High Life commercials. And I started those a year and a half outside of school. Now, it started as one commercial, which turned into 3 commercials, then 6 commercials, and then a personal appearance tour around the country. And I'm still doing that today. So from 06 to 13. So the break for me was when they called me and said, we need you to quit your day job because you're not going to be able to go anymore because we're going to take you. So and I wanted to add this because when you're going to these commercial auditions, I know it's hot, and you go into a room full of 50 people. I didn't even know what the commercial was. It just said, look like a working man. So I show up in Dickies. I don't talk the first day. I'm moving beer on the hand cart. Come back the next day, then I'm talking. And then I say one line, and they want you to read, and then from that, okay, you're excited, you get one commercial. You just never know. So do everything as though it is. You know, you do your best in everything. What if I'd been like, oh, I don't want to drive to Santa Monica, and it's 1 o'clock in the traffic, and I don't feel like going to get the Dickies and put them on, because I had to leave my day job, go get the Dickies in over the hill, drive back to Santa Monica, drive back to the day job after, and stay late that night, and then had a call back the next day in them same damn Dickies. Now, you see how hectic it sounds. Now, I was ecstatic, you know what I mean, because this is a year and a half out of school. This is what we do. We go through these crazy things. This is what you signed up for. If you love this acting thing, it's going to be crazy sometime and hectic. You just never know where that break is, so do everything with excellence.
You never know who's watching. You will never know who's watching in this day and age of social media. You do not know.
Valerie?
Yeah, a big thing for me too is sometimes they're all breaks. Like for me, like one thing, like, you know, because that question I feel like is so hard. Because I'm like, I don't know, like, what do you think? I was happy about all of them. Because, like, you know, I was in Florida. I did this Nickelodeon live show. That was a break. Like, I'm on a live show. Holy crap, you know, I'm getting paid. Like, I just bought my first car. Wow. I moved to LA. Like, I got my first pilot. One line. Oh, my God. Like, that's a break. Like, and then I got to be SAG. Then, like, the next gig, I had more scenes. I was like, oh, this is another break. Like, everything, celebrate all of those. Because you might, I mean, I don't know, everybody's personal break is different, and maybe how big or small you want it. Everybody has a different goal, you know, what they want to do with their career. So all these little moments, at least for me, this, like, talking to you guys, like, and you maybe caring, this is crazy. Like, you know, like, celebrating all these little things. I mean, we were talking about earlier about perseverance. Like, my mom's a social worker. Like, my dad did upholstery. Like, perseverance is like going to an audition, getting paid for a job, calling my mom, and she's like doing her job, and like I'm getting paid crazy money to have fun. Like, so when I am on the 405 hating my life, like I call my mom and I'm like, you know what? Life is good. You know, like this was a break today, and just celebrate those moments because it's so important when things are hard, and they're going to be so hard sometimes. And I'm a big family person. Everybody's on the East Coast, so when they're having the barbecues or the Mother's Day dinner and the arroz con pollo in Miami and Orlando or Puerto Rico, wherever they are, you're just like, man, like, why can't I be there right now? So you have to celebrate the moments to make it worth your while and make those little breaks count to you, because if not, it's really not going to be worth it.
Maggie May Reed. Hi, Maggie. Maggie wants to know, after you've worked on a project, who do you tend to keep in contact with? Producers, directors, casting, etc.? Yes, Nora?
Whoever likes me.
Yes, ma'am?
I guess, well, no, it's whoever you connect with. I mean, I've worked with so many of the same people on different shows, but I'm talking cinematographers, casting, gaffers, writers, directors, so many different people in all of the spectrums of working on a show. But I will say that I've made friends along the way, and just honest to God friends, and I keep working with them. I mean, repetitively, like over and over again, and that's good for me and it's good for them, and it's really created a family and a community. But I think I keep in touch with whoever you connect with, which is oftentimes a lot of people because you're all in the same thing. So
I've got some few cards left, but since we've been having this discussion for over an hour or so, is there someone in the audience who hasn't written down something but have heard something one of our panelists have said that makes them want to ask a question right now? Yes, ma'am.
Well, when you guys were auditioning or the in-between time, how did you balance, the waitressing job or the survival job and, the audition, and then still try to go hiking and, and still try to hang out with friends? Like, how did you, what type of ways did you balance surviving?
I still haven't figured it out. I am terribly imbalanced. Just ask my husband. I think it's a constant challenge. There are times where I feel like I have my shit together. I'm like, hey, I got enough sleep. I'm looking good. Great audition. Great. Oh, awesome. There are other days. Okay, let me tell you, this morning, I put flaxseed in the coffee maker. I'm like, because I had 4 hours of sleep last night. There's just a lot of stuff going on right now.
He gave it to me.
What do you mean she gave it to you?
Flaxseed.
So yeah, I think it's a constant struggle. I think some sort of spiritual practice helps, meditation, going to church, whatever your religion or faith is, really helps grounding. Or just time with nature. All of those things I know I personally need, or I go insane.
Yes, yes sir. You had a question?
Well, I was wondering, Oscar, you said that you didn't have any credits, but you had an agent. How did you have an agent when you had nothing?
I had done a little bit of theater, but I had no television or film credits.
Professional credits.
Professional
Yeah.
credits,
Uh-huh.
and the photographer that took the horrible headshots did recommend me to the agents. So that's how the agent took me on, and it was Miami, so it's not LA that people have all tons of credit. So he was fine with my 2 film credits, 2 stage credits that I had.
Someone else? Yes, sir.
Windell, you shouldn't be shy about this. A lot of us know you from the Miller products, which are great, but a lot of people don't know how classically trained you are, because I'm from Chicago. I was at Comiskey Park when you sung the national anthem.
Oh,
so you can blast and you can sing, but people really should know how how diverse you are in that, and that you're Shakespearean trained and all of that. I mean, that should always be put up there.
Well, thank you very much. No, I let people know. Thank you very much. That means a lot.
Okay. And you and me have a mutual favorite bar in Chicago. We'll discuss that.
Okay. Yes. I'm always in Miller Country. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir. And then I'll get you in the back. Yes, go ahead.
It's a little random, but with the way the business kind of decentralizing right now, I'm assuming you guys are all based in LA. Do you find yourselves having to travel a little bit more than you normally used to, or than you can for more work? Do you see that as a big thing, or is it like just you can be in LA?
I think you have to be ready to go all the time. You never know what can happen. I just got back from New York. I was there for 3 months. I was only supposed to be there for 12 days to do 1 episode, and I was there for 3 months. And I was flying home on the weekends, checking on my dad, my dog, everything. And it's just, you never know where you're going to go. I've done a series in Colombia, in Bogota, Colombia. I've worked in New Zealand I was down in New Zealand for 3 months, and there was no way you're going to fly home on the weekend for that. So I think just being open to the possibilities that you might have to run to Atlanta to do a guest spot or somewhere you've never heard of, because everything is shooting everywhere. And, you know, you would never want to turn down an opportunity just because it's not in your home.
Your homework is to go home and make sure your passport is up to date.
Yes.
In the back, someone had a question? Yes, sir? Yes?
Hi, guys. Why do people quit acting?
Why are you asking that question? No, I don't mean that in a mean way at all. Is that something that's on your mind?
Well, there's so many of us that are bitten by the bug. There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of encouragement, there's a lot of inspiration, but there's a lot of us that drop off. And I was wondering what the panel's opinion is. What does it take to stay with it?
Great question. Somebody want to touch on that?
I think going back to the basics of why is it that you got into acting in the first place? When you were maybe a little kid, what was it that attracted you to acting? And to me, it's going back to that keeps me going when everything else is telling me that maybe I should quit. That's the thing that has kept me going throughout the years, and I've had a lot of ups and downs. And that's part of the career. And I think anybody at any level, for different reasons, is going to have ups and downs. If you do it for long enough, that's part of it. And I think it's going back to why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Because sometimes it's easy to forget why you're doing it. And I think even more if you had a little bit of success, you can forget why you're doing this. You start thinking about the money. You start thinking about, your credit. Why didn't I get a single card? Why is that guy in front of me? Why? And you lose perspective of why is it that I'm doing this? I'm not doing it because I want a bigger trailer than the other guy. I'm not doing it because it's something that I need to do, because I won't be happy if I do anything else.
The only reason to quit is if you wake up one day and you decide you don't want to do it anymore. You decide it's not making you happy. Because if you continue to do it when it is not making you happy, this is the only life, whether you believe in reincarnation or whether you believe this is our only go-around, whatever, this is the one you have to worry about right now. This is the life you have to worry about. So are you going to live it for somebody else? Or are you going to do what somebody else wants you to do? That starts when you're very young. What do your mom and dad want you to do? No, they had their shot. This is your shot. This is your shot. If you wake up in the morning and following this path no longer makes you happy, and you know, I believe, it's never happened to me, but I've heard that when it's gone, then you quit. You leave. Because if you stay in this business, when it has left your soul, it will break you. It will break your heart, it will break your spirit, and you will become somebody you just don't want to be around. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense to anybody? It can wreck you. But if you wake up every single day and you go, I got to go wait tables, I've got to go walk dogs, I've got to go be a legal secretary, and fortunately my boss understands because he's going to let me go out on an audition, but I get to go and do an improv class tonight. Fantastic. If you wake up every day and the fire is still in the belly, don't walk away. Just don't walk away, because it's your life.
Yes, sir, in the white shirt, you had your hand up? Yes, sir.
Yes, I just want to comment that I'm so impressed we all are by the brilliance of all that you represent and all that you are and all that you accomplish. Young lady, I just wanted to mention, you remind me of Marion from Love Novels. And,
Thank you.
Which I just saw again last night, her astonishing performance, where you evoke her spirit needs, I think, is great to you. How do you, as she did in that incredible performance, touch people's hearts? Because I know it must be more than just a matter of having a job and doing a job as well as you can. I'm sure it's also a matter of some kind of personal transcendence for yourself in the role that we with you create something that will evoke the deepest of emotions from the audience. So
think about my family and my friends, and I think about, what my grandmother's reaction would be when I'm working, or when I book something, and I know she's going to be so excited, and I think when I'm on set doing a scene, performing, I'm thinking, how is this going to look? How is my dad going to react to this? Is this good enough? Is he going to be proud of me? Am I going to be proud of myself when I see it? And just continuing with that, rather than just throwing the lines out there, doing the job, oh, I'm getting paid, whatever. No, it's all of it is emotional. It's an experience. It's exciting, and you are touching people, and knowing that your face and your performance is going to be out there to possibly touch people. That in itself just means so much, and it's so exciting to be able to go to work and to do something like that. I hope I answered that right.
I interviewed Marion Cotillard for La Vie en Rose, and she's a remarkable person. And what you were just touching on, when we talked about how she solved the character, she used especially when she played the older person, she worked on her grandfather in the physicality and the connection that she had to him. But I think that all the actors up here who have already mentioned it as well is that she drew so much from herself as a person. And even though she couldn't sing, she said she sang all of the songs. Obviously, they put in the voice later on. But yes, she is quite a remarkable actor, I think, as well. Someone else had a question. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to give a shout out to my fellow Iowa girl and find out where you were from.
I went to Johnston High School.
Okay.
Where did you go?
Carol.
I don't know where that is.
Smaller than Bell.
Oh, okay.
Where is it?
Western Iowa.
Cool.
About an hour and a half.
And what are you doing here? There you go.
Okay.
Good for you. Someone else have a question in the audience that's on their mind before we get close to the end. Yes, sir. Yes.
I'm from Miami also, so. But I find myself wanting, because I am really stuck with family, and it's a big deal to me. Family is what drives me. I want to take the work back there. I want to create things to build up my family, to build up the life that I had back there. Do you guys find yourselves, everybody on stage, wanting to take work or create things within the community when you first started, or when you had it as well? And when you do find that, do that, how do you do that?
I can say about Miami, since you're from Miami, I think each of us, where we come from, there's stories to be told that are personal, that we haven't seen on screen. The characters that we grew up around, that we go, wow, if this character will be seen on screen, it would be amazing. So that does motivate me. That does motivate me, and I've been lucky to be able to go back to Miami several times and work with filmmakers from there and tell their stories that are very personal. But yes, I'm not sure what the question was. I think I lost my train of thought, but
How do you recreate? There's a strong power out here when it comes down to you want to make a movie. You have the resources here, and I've learned the people out here. And I know when you go back home, do you guys have any way that you would find the right people to work with within your own hometown, reach out to the right people, create the right crew, the right cast?
Well, just to help out here, and also because of time, is, Miami, and since we're all here part of a union, is that there are, you could go back to the Miami base or Orlando, where there's also a branch as well, where I've been to speak, have spoken at both, and use their resources there. Find the communities, the colleges, the film schools that people are doing things just like you're here in. I think someone said in the audience is that there's enormous diversity around the country in the film business, and if you have Louisiana roots, you should go out and find a Louisiana agent. And I was shooting in North Carolina. A woman lived in Alabama and would go to North Carolina to come to audition, drive back home, got the job, and came back. So you go to those areas, use the union, go Google search all of that stuff. You'd be able to find all of that.
Two things that I
Yes,
would
go
like to
ahead.
quick say. One is relationships. Tell people, let's say you have a project, you've written it. Who are you looking for? Are you looking for a gaffer, a DP, a script super, whatever? What are you looking for? Tell people, because you never know whom they can refer you to. That's one thing. Constantly talk, tell people what you're up to, work your own relationships. Second thing, Mandy.com, MANDY.com. He said, I'm looking for whatever. You can put anything on there. And you tell them.
That's a great resource.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal resource.
I want to ask a question of the panel, one second. And that is, because I mentioned this before, there's so much diversity on the stage right here. And I think it's important for actors of color to speak about that. And whether you have found it to whether it's an obstacle or it's an opportunity, but how you perceive yourself in the business and use it to your advantage. Yes, Wendell.
I guess I'll start. Let me just say, most of the roles on my resume did not start out, we're looking for a big black man. Literally, the first pilot I booked on Fox, his name was Jesus. And they had everybody in there. Well, when I end up getting the pilot that they then, getting this role that they end up writing out, but I go in, I book this role, they kept the name Jesus, but I was the guy because of my essence, and they started trying to write in how he got the name Jesus.
That's a great story.
So, literally, a lot of times my reps and stuff will pitch me and say, you just need to see him. They're asking for a 7-foot white man or a 6-foot, Asian man. They're like, no, I know this is what you're saying, but the essence,
right? You
need to see him. And those have been the jobs that I've gotten. And so that has kind of been my, just go in and take me into it, and then we'll figure out the rest of it later.
Anyone else want to touch on that?
I guess I'm the opposite. I've gone out for a lot of Latina roles. And I feel like I've gotten that question, and I have friends who've been like offended if it's like the single mother Latina or like the ghetto Latina or like whatever stereotype that could possibly be. But honestly, like, I've been happy to go out for all of them, and even if she's not Latina, just because I feel like, there's so many stories to tell, so why get offended and upset about it? If you don't like it, don't go out for it, But I've just been honored, like, each and every one of them, and I still am. And the only thing that was, like, a thing was just within just my cultural things, and body image has been the biggest thing, just because, Latinas, we like to eat, and I feel like, and I think that was my own personal thing, because when I first got out here, I was chunky, and that was hard, because I was like, oh, okay. And then I just kind of had to find who I was in the industry, who I was Valery as the Puerto Rican actress who's Latina, who goes home to eat rice and beans, but then wait a minute, I'm about to do a scene in a bikini next week. Sorry, mom and dad, no offense. And I learned who that was, and I'm still learning, and now I found it, and I feel good.
Good. We got the we have to finish moment.
Who said that?
The person in charge. I want to thank you guys for participating in this tonight. Thank you. I think you all, speaking for all of us, if I may, make us proud to be actors because of your dedication, your commitment, and your really lovingness to share who you are and how you go about it to us and giving back to your colleagues. And it's very impressive. And thank you for being here tonight. Thank you.